enjoy the special lecture from Venerable Master Ming. So just wait for sometimes. I think some students, the most of students who participate in this class are the students from the Faculty of Buddhism and the Faculty of Humanities, and some from IBSC. Venerable Sir.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, in the morning, I think nearly 50 students. We have to it. Now they are coming. So in the morning, I have to say thank you very much to Venerable Dr. Renzus on behalf of the director, the most venerable Professor Dr. Patham Vajrabandit, Rector of Mahachulalongkorn Vidyalaya University, who has the policy to organize or co-organize the class between MCU and affiliated institutes. So in the morning, we have Venerable Dr. Sanghas, Assistant Director for Foreign Affairs, and also Dr. Taratep, who have attended along with students. So in the afternoon also, Venerable Dr. Sanghas, Assistant Director for Foreign Affairs, will be with us in the before the end of at the end of the class. I will invite him to give a thanks speech to our special lecturers. So today in the afternoon, we have a plenary lecturers who are very experienced both in Buddhism and also higher education. He's play a very important role to international academic affairs with Mahachulalongkorn Vidyalaya University, as he play a vital role in the celebration of the Vesak Day of UN Day of Vesak. And also, Venerable Sir, he also play a vital role about the development of Buddhist Association of University, or the International Association of Buddhist University, under the presidency of the most venerable Professor Dr. Patham Bandit, a former rector of Mahachulalongkorn Vidyalaya University. So before inviting him to give a special lecture, I would like to introduce about Venerable Master Dr.Shi Ming a little bit before inviting him to give a special lecture. Venerable Master Dr.Shi Ming, he is a committee member of Affiliated Institute of Ching Buddhist Sanghas University and Assistant Director Ching Buddhist Sanghas University. Venerable Sir has been the abbot of Phu Hai Chan Monastery in Singapore. In September 1994, Phu Hai Chan Monastery, under the leadership of Venerable Master Dr. Ming, established the 175-bed range hospital and Medicare center for chronically ill patients among the poor and needy. In 1996, the Singapore government awarded the Public Service Medal to Venerable Ming in recognition of his contributions to the country. In September 1998, the hospital established its affiliate Renzi Day Care Center for the elderly. In 1999, Phu Hai Chan Monastery took over the management of 270 beds in 11 single-story wards, which were formerly parts of Tan Tock Cheng Hospital. It organized fundraising activities such as concerts given by Andy Rua, Risa Wang, Adam Cheng, Roman Tam, and Francis Gibbs. All these are very famous and well known to our Thai people also. They perform for free. Venerable Master Dr.Shi Ming took over the abbotship of the Gung Chung Temple in Hong Kong, also the Guan Yin Temple in Patorang Chaya, Malaysia. Sorry if I pronounce not correct. And the vice chairmanship of the affiliated Shanghai Ching Gong Lin Association. For his educational background, Venerable Master Dr.Shi Ming received his master's in healthcare management from the University of Wales. It was reported that the Venerable claimed to hold a PhD in philosophy that was awarded by Manning University in Ireland, a university whose existence could not be verified. Venerable Master Dr.Shi Ming, spokesman, commented that the research degree was undertaken through distance learning and thus the monk never visited the university. This is our special lecture for the afternoon session. Please welcome the most venerable Dr. Shi Ming, who are going to give us a speech lecture from 1 o'clock, I think in 3:30. Yes, Venerable sir, if you are ready, please.
Thank you for the introduction.
Recording in progress.
The Venerable sirs and dear friends in the Dharma, it is my privilege here to be giving this lecture on Mahayana Buddhism. Today we're going to talk about the Mahayana Buddhism, the origin, the development, and its essence from India to other countries like China and Chinese Taipei. Yes, I've been told to give 2.5 hours. I suppose I'll probably finish in about 2 hours or so. Because if I were to go into each and every dynasty of China, it's going to take a long time. So I've more or less shortened some of it to the more important aspects of which parts that are more important during the origin and how it developed in China, how Buddhism developed in China to today, and then to, of course, to Taipei, to even to Singapore, to Malaysia and all that. If we talk about China, Buddhism has been in China for more than 2,000 years. And during this long period, it has more or less incorporated the culture of the Chinese people. So I suppose it's as what Buddhism has been. It's just like it goes to Thailand, it also incorporated with Thailand's culture. So it goes into China, it also incorporated with China's culture. It's distinct political arena as well as the societal systems. And thus, in China, it became the distinct Chinese Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism, we could divide it into two schools of thoughts. It could be the Tibetan Buddhism, and of course, it could also be the Chinese Mahayana Buddhism. with the influence from origin from India, with the influence of Chinese culture and so on, it still maintained the teaching of the Mahayana thoughts that originated from India. So how did Buddhism came about to China? I think it was really appreciated for the merchants, the people doing trading in both countries, both India and China. So not only that they brought about businesses between the two countries, they also brought with them Buddhist teachings. At the same time, there were many learned monks, high-ranking venerable masters from India who came to China via the Silk Road to teach and propagate Buddhism. Also, at that time, there were venerable masters like Fa Xian, like Xuan Zhuang, who went to India to obtain scriptures and brought them back to China to translate into Chinese Mahayana texts. Let's go back to early China. From Eastern Han Dynasty, which is the year 25 to 220, to the late Qing Dynasty, which is from 1644 to 1911. We witness the flourishing and decline of many emperors and dynasties. We all know that at that point of time, China was governed by emperors. And we also witness the breaking up of different countries, different districts, versus later on, it was united as one again. And we see the opposition or civic groups and also the unity. So the changes in society, the rise and fall of the local religions and etc. cannot deny that it has some influence on the impact of Buddhism. Because different emperors embrace different religions. Some emperors who love Buddhism, but of course at that point of time, Buddhism will prosper more. And there are emperors who abolish Buddhism. And when they abolish Buddhism, then it makes the downfall of Buddhism at that point of time. So Buddhism, although it has been in China for about 2,000 years, it still maintains its distinct features. It had to look for space to survive. So how could Buddhism, which is a foreign religion, survive in China? How could it make people accept this religion that is going on in China, which is foreign to many people? Because way back in early China, people take it that Buddhism is from India and is an Indian religion. So how could they contribute? So what they did was they started to contribute to the society. They do good to the society. So this if it does not brand itself into the society, it does not incorporate into the society, then it's afraid that Buddhism could be like Buddhism in India, which is near extinction. So what he needed to do was some temples to act as like a community hall for the local Chinese to assemble, to do good to the local people, to help the local people. Buddhism advocates equality. Buddhism advocates that all beings can attain Buddhahood. This is something very new to China because they were used not to that. So this is very different from other religions. So how could they accept that everybody could attain Buddhahood like the Buddha? So when Buddhism first came to China, about 500 years after the passing of the Buddha, Chinese Buddhism went to Japan at the second 500 years after the passing of the Buddha. So the first 500 years that it went to China, that was after the passing of the Buddha, 500 years, first to China and then to Japan, which started all this Mahayana Buddhism, which have a gap of 500 years. Thus, the introduction and acceptance of Buddhism definitely will differ from the original form of what it was in India. It was very different. It started to change. The development of the two pillars of Eastern culture. One is from the Indian River to Ganges River, which maintain the culture of India's civilization. The second Chinese civilization is from the Yellow River, which is known as Huanghe, and developed to the South Yangtze River or Yangtze. So these are two different pillars. One which is very India civilization from India River to Ganges River. And the other one is from Huanghe to Yangtze. That is the second one. So Buddhism spreading from India to other countries was during the King Asoka, the birth of King Asoka. That is during the Peacock dynasty. During that time, the protection of Buddhism and also the refuge in Buddhism by majority of Indians, as well as sent missionaries or preachers to cross the border of India to spread the message of Buddhism to different cultures. At that time, in Eastern China, the emperor of Han Dynasty originate the transactions with India in what is known as the Silk Road. I think the Silk Road is still something that everybody still look upon, even up to this date, because that is where the business, the trading, and a lot of things happen at the Silk Road. This traffic, which is a traffic between East and West. India's Buddhism came with the traders from India through the Silk Road and spread to the culture circle in China. they brought with them, they told the Chinese people how good Buddhism is. From what they learned in India, they spread to the other people in China. At the same time, in Ceylon, or where it is in Sri Lanka now, passing through the water of the Indian Ocean, Buddhism also took the opportunity to spread to China using the Southern Sea trading and spread to the different areas in the south. So we see two areas. One is Buddhism spreading from the Silk Road. The other area is from Sri Lanka, Ceylon, where it passed through the sea to the people in China. So now we see two areas. One is through road, the other one through the sea. Therefore, the origination of Buddhism in China is from the two factors by the Silk Road, that is by land and then by sea. First, by traders, and later by venerated masters. And also venerated masters like Fa Xian and Xuan Zhuang obtaining scriptures from the West to bring back to China. So there was mutual interaction going to and fro from both sides. And this mutual interaction became more and more frequent. And thus, the thoughts representing India's culture of Buddhism came to the culture of China. But to incorporate more of Chinese culture was of a different time. This was during the Sui Tang dynasty, which is during 581 and year 670. During the Sui Tang dynasty, this was due to the flourishment of Tibet. And because of Tibet, the relationship between Tang dynasty and India became very frequent. So in the 7 to 8 BC, that result in the Hen Duan Sanmai, or which is known as the Hen Duan Mountains, the plateau near Tibet, which is actually several parallel mountains in ranges as a border between West Yunnan and Sichuan and East Tibet. So we could see, because of the flourishment of Buddhism in Tibet, and these parallel mountains, which range from the border between West Yunnan and Sichuan to that of East Tibet, it passes on this Buddhism on to China for them to understand the different aspect of another part of Mahayana Buddhism, which is the Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism. Until the 4th century, it was basically translating the text or scriptures. And 5th and 6th century was basically doing research on Buddhism. So we see each century there was a different thing. 4th century was doing translating of texts. 5th and 6th century was basically doing research on Buddhism. After 7th century, different sects of Buddhism was developed. What do I mean by different sects of Buddhism? For example, the Pure Land sect. For example, the Zen sect or the Chan sect. Or for example, the Avantam Sanghas sect. So there were different schools of thoughts. There are different schools where they developed different sects. And they were all inclination of knowledge was still not very obvious. So they started this sect, people started to go into knowledge of Buddhism more deeply to find out what is actually Buddhism about. So after the 7th century, we see a lot of knowledge coming in. The wise teachings of the Buddha, as we all know, was not recorded into phrases or scriptures, but was through the memory of senior Mahasanghas. Thus, they were taught by words of mouth to the disciples. After the passing of the Buddha, it was during this great assembly that the scriptures were recited and recorded so that it will not be taught with mistakes or passed from words of mouth with inaccuracy. It was also around this time that the great assembly, that Buddhism was spread to China. Of course, at that point of time, it was also by word of mouth from the traders who went through from the Silk Road or from Ceylon. So it was by word of mouth because in India, the great assemblies just started to do recording and all that. So there was no recorded text. So the foundations of Chinese Buddhism is in the last years of the late Han Dynasty, which is the year 947, lasting about 4 years. During the reign of that emperor, which is known as Emperor Huan, there were 2 distinguished Chinese monks. These 2 very distinguished Chinese monks called An Shi Gao and Zhi Luo Jie Shi, or Loka Sema. Both of them concentrated on the translation of scriptures to Chinese. Like I said, there were no recorded scriptures at the moment. So whatever they have, they just translated to Chinese. Both of them concentrate on translating whatever knowledge they have to Chinese. They translated texts like the 4 Noble Sutra or the 4 Noble Truths, on Dharma Chakra, 8 Noble Paths. Now, these were all not Mahayana texts. These were all just Theravada texts. The 4 Noble Truths, the 8-fold Path, the Dharma Chakra were all Theravada texts. There were no Mahayana texts at all. Lokasema came after An Shi Gao and translated from Mahayana texts like the Suragama Sutra, Prayopana Samadhi Sutra. Although it was not really Mahayana texts that were in broad sense, but they tried to contribute, both of them contributed to the Theravada as well as the Mahayana texts in China. But there were not many Mahayana texts. There were not many Mahayana texts. And in the year 250, they only started to translate the Vinaya. So there was no Vinaya. People who were ordained as monks or nuns do not go through the proper procedure of higher ordination to become bhikkhus or bhikkhunis. They were just ordained to look like monks and nuns. So in the year 250, the Vinaya was translated in Luoyang. Before that, monks and nuns would just shave their heads, but would not go through the proper vinayas of becoming bhikkhus or bhikkhunis. Thus, the first person who became a bhikkhu, who underwent the vinaya, is Chueh, who is known as the first bhikkhu of China. Chueh. He was from Henan and professed in the Prajna Sutra. In the year 317, known as the Eastern Ching, there were 16 different countries in China, all fighting to take over one another. In the turbulence of fighting, people were fearsome. They don't know what is in front of them, what is for them in the future. However, because they were fearsome, Buddhism stood out from the rest. Buddhism took the opportunity to help them, to assure them not to be fearful. The reason was because to the Chinese, Buddhism came from elsewhere, thus has a foreign thoughts and sentiments. For those people who have been fighting, they are the local. They are local. But they have been fighting, all these 16 countries have been fighting to take over one another. But to fight, sometimes they took over another state very easily, sometimes losing in months to go, thus losing their cultures. So from that standpoint, since that during that 16 states, 16 countries, they do not have their own culture, thus Buddhism, they could accept Buddhism, which is from a foreign country. They are willing to accept Buddhism. And also Buddhism took the part to assure them that they could try to see what they can learn from Buddhism to be less fearsome. And in the year 323 to 325, there was a monk from India known as Fo Tu Chen, who managed to persuade the state officials to recognize the Sangha order. Before that, nobody recognized Sangha order. As there was a time of turbulence in China, many people went to the monasteries to become monks and nuns. They want to look for condolence in the temples. So they became monks and nuns. Because of this growth, there were many monks and nuns in China. And because there were many monks and nuns in China, Fo Tu Chen thought that there must be a proper Sangha order. Thus, the Sangha order was organized. It was organized to manage the order of monastic life for the monks and nuns. Dao An, another monk, who is a disciple of Fo Tu Chen, contributed immensely to it to make sure that the Sangha order is in proper order. There were proper discipline, proper rules and regulations for the monks to follow. Fo Tu Chen has more than a few hundred disciples. in all, from his life in China, he had a total of about 10,000 disciples in total. Thus, his disciple contributed by doing the following. One, he categorized the scriptures. He categorized the scriptures. He reorganized the scriptures and did a catalog of them. Number two, the explanation of the sutras. Tao An professed in the research of Panna, using emptiness to explain all Dhamma. To this, when he explained the scripture, he will divide into 3 sections. Just like today, he will divide into the preface or the foreword, then the authentic section, and letting the circulation of prints at the end of it. Up to today, sutras and scriptures are still divided into these 3 sections if to explain. Number 3, order of the clergy. Previously, monks will have a name. Okay, for example, Tao An, for example, Fo Tu Chen. But Tao An felt that since Buddhist monks are the disciples of the Sakyamuni Buddha, so all of us should have the same surname as Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha. So from the Chinese text, when it's translated into Sakyamuni Buddha, it's known as Shi Jia. Shi Jia. So for example, my name. Just now when I was introduced, you all call me Venerable Shi Ming Yi. Actually in Chinese, it's known as Venerable Shi Ming Yi. So this Shi is actually the surname of the Buddha. The surname of the Buddha as in Sakya, Shi Jia. So from Tao An onwards, all Buddhist monks in Mahayana Chinese Buddhism has this surname of Shi, which is the disciple of the Buddha. So Tao An has these 3 things. One is to categorize and catalog the scriptures. Number 2 is to how to explain the sutras in the 3 different sections, the preface or the foreword, and the actual authentic explanation, and then the circulation. And then number 3 is for all Buddhist monks, Chinese Buddhist monks, Mahayana Buddhist monks, to have this surname of Shi. So these are the 3 things that the Venerable Master Tao An did. Following that, Buddhism flourished. And one of the person who could represent a great Buddhist monk is known as Kumarajiva. Kumarajiva is actually from India. He is born in the year 344 and passed away in the year 413. Kumarajiva's father is from India, and his mother is the sister of the king of Kuchina. So the father was from India, the mother was from Kuchina. However, Kumarajiva was ordained at the age of 7. And when he was 9 years old, he followed his mother to Kashmir. and learn Theravada Buddhism. Then, after some years, he learned about Mahayana Buddhism. So he thought about Mahayana Buddhism. He wanted to translate Mahayana texts to Chinese. Kumarajiva was well versed in his Sanskrit language as well as Chinese. So he followed his mother to Kashmir, and after that he wanted to translate. So he returned to Cochin and concentrated on the teaching of Mahayana Buddhism. Kumarajiva was sought after by a few countries, as he was very learned. Some countries just wanted to have him. Some countries wanted him to go to their countries to teach Buddhism. So Kumarajiva was the first monk that the war broke out because of him. They wanted to snatch him. They wanted him to be in their country. And at that time, a general by the name of Li Guang fought a battle. And he destroyed Cochin and wanted to bring Kumarajiva back to China in Chang'an. Along the way, many things happened. The emperor of Chang'an at that time, who wanted Kumarajiva so much, passed away. But Kumarajiva landed up in Chang'an. So when he was 58 years old, he led a team of more than 3,000 students to do translation, and did translation for more than 12 years. For example, he translated the Lotus Sutra, which is the Vimalakirti Sutra, and the Mahaprajna Sutra. All these sutras, which is from Mahayana text, he translated. Altogether, 74 sutras and 384 scrolls. So during his 12 years, he did a lot. Kumarajiva, during his lifetime, like I said, he was snatched from one country to another. And he was even forced to marry a princess. Because at that point of time, Li Guang said he is of so high intelligence, he should have an offspring, to have a child, to be as intelligent as him. So he was forced to marry. He was forced to marry, and when he was forced to marry, according to recordings, Kumarajiva took a handful of needles and he swallowed it. And he says, if you could follow me, I've been forced to marry to the princess. And even before his deathbed, Kumarajiva said this: during my 12 years of translation, if I have translated correctly and accurately, my tongue after cremation will not be destroyed. So he made this vow: if I translated correctly, my tongue will not be destroyed. And true to the effect, after his cremation, Kumarajiva's tongue is still intact. That is in one of the pagodas in China now, which is known as the Temple of Kumarajiva. So Kumarajiva translated so many sutras, and he has contributed so much to the Mahayana texts. In the year 334 to 416, at the same time, the Pure Land sect founded by Patriarch Huiyan started chanting the name of Amitabha Buddha. Now, from India, they only heard about Sakyamuni Buddha. They have not heard about other Buddhas. But after translation of text, the introduction of Pure Land like Amitabha Buddha, the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, etc., were introduced to the Chinese. And that is a Pure Land Sutra. So what was learned was, if we were to concentrate and chant the name of the Amitabha Buddha, we will attain a place in Pure Land, a place in Pure Land, which we call the Western Paradise. So this was introduced in the Pure Land sect. Huiyan not only professed in Buddhist sutras, but he also professed in thoughts of Confucianism and Zhuangzi, because Confucianism was founded in China. Zhuangzi was also founded in China. And at that point of time, besides learning Buddhism, a lot of learned monks also learn things from Confucianism and Zhuangzi. So the first abolished, now let's talk about, we talk about the flourish, how Buddhism flourished. But then the first abolishment of Buddhism came, and that was in the year 446. 446. I mentioned before that Buddhism was growing very fast. Many people became monks and nuns. There were many Buddhist monasteries being built, and many people became monks and nuns. So it was growing very fast. At that point, the emperor at that time wanted to stop the growth of Buddhism. The officials found a temple in Chang'an, hidden with a lot of military weapons. And there were secret chambers with women inside. Thus, they took the opportunity to say that Buddhism are degrading themselves. Buddhism are building Buddhist temples to hide armories, to go against the government. Buddhism, the monks are hiding women to downgrade themselves. Now, how true is that? Of course, because they wanted to abolish Buddhism. So they planted all this to make it look real. And thus the people believe. Thus, then the emperor had a very good reason to say, abolish Buddhism altogether. So at that point of time, Buddhism was abolished. 6 years after the first abolishment, the next emperor, known as Wen Cheng, came on throne in year 452. He liked Buddhism. He revived Buddhism and ordered a senior monk by the name of Tanji to put the Sangha back in order. He built Buddhist stupas and also made new Buddhist statues. So like I started right from the beginning, we could see different emperors falling, declining, passing away, dynasty abolishing, dynasty growing, and at the same time, different emperors, different dynasties, the way they look at Buddhism. Just a matter of 6 years, Buddhism was revived. New stupas, new Buddhist statues, new Buddhist temples. At that time, 3,000 monks came from India to China. And translation work was back in progress. In year 550, the Wei dynasty was divided into Eastern Wei, which is Henan now, and Western Wei, which is Chang'an. Buddhism continued to grow until the year 567. Emperor Wu of Northern Zhou felt that he wanted to improve on the economy and defense of the country. He felt that the monks and nuns are a bunch of useless people that is not contributing to the economy or helping with the defense of the country. He felt that monks are just eating and doing nothing at all. Thus, in the year 567, he forced the monks to disrobe and he abolished Buddhism. At that point of time, there was a Taoist priest by the name of Zhang Ping. Taoist at that point of time was accepted by the emperor, Wu. So they abolished Buddhism and make Taoism the religion of the country. So this Zhang Ping was very active. He encouraged the emperor to abolish Buddhism. Thus, temples were destroyed. Monks and nuns were forced to disrobe, and the monks were forced to join the army. In China, I mentioned there are 8 sects or 8 schools of thoughts. For example, like I mentioned earlier, there's Pure Land or the Chan or the Zen or the Pana school of thought or the Avanta Sankha or the Huayan or the Lotus. So the one that is based on Lotus Sutra is founded by Patriarch Zhi in the year 538 to 597 and was known as Tian Tai or Sky Terrace. It was a well-known school of thought. A lot of people followed this teaching because of Lotus Sutra. Lotus Sutra divided into 7 volumes. Altogether, there are 28 sections in 7 volumes. So with these 7 volumes and 28 sections, it could be taken a volume or a section separately. And so people could learn 1 volume by 1 volume or section by section. So the Tian Tai at that point of time was growing very vigorously, and many people followed. During the Tang Dynasty, I think to talk about Chinese Buddhism, we cannot miss out the Tang Dynasty. During the Tang Dynasty, problems arise again because of religions and politics. although both have distinct differences, but politics and religion, though we say do not mix together, but somehow I would say politics is basically like the air that we are breathing. Politics is everywhere, like it or not. Whether you are a monk or you're not a monk, you know what is politics. So politics is like the air that we breathe. So although it's divided, but in a way, it's also closely associated. So they are closely related. The Sangha order established in India has its own set of rules and is self-governing. Thus, it usually does not get interference from the country or political groups at that point of time. But when the Sangha order came to China and developed in a sovereign society where the emperor is always considered the top person, the premier considered second person and all that, they don't always want to respect monks and pay respects to monks. So the learned people started to criticize the Sangha order. They felt that Sangha members did not have filial piety. They felt that Sangha members are not filial to their parents. They think that they became monks and nuns because they do not want to take care of their parents anymore. So the aged parents are left alone at home. Furthermore, with the Vinaya, monks and nuns are not supposed to do farming at that point of time, not supposed to do farming. Thus, in a sense, this gave Sangha members special privileges to either about, and the number of Sangha members has increased tremendously. They don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to do farming. They were offered food by the lay people to the Sangha members. So to the learned people, they are waste of the society. They are just idling there, doing nothing at all. And that's why the numbers of Sangha members has increased tremendously. To them, they felt that the state treasury has decreased because of the Sangha members. But they also feel that because of these Sangha members, it will somehow imbalance the social balance of the country. Thus, in the year 631, Tang Taizong, the emperor, ordered a decree for monks to respect their parents. He said, you all must practice filial piety, and you have to continue to take care of your parents and must pay respect to the monarchy and elders. So it was at that point of time, there was a new decree to ask that all monks and nuns to pay respect to their parents and to the monarchy and the elders. Although there was objection from some Sangha order at that point of time. But because it was a decree by the emperor, so eventually respect and prostrate to the parents, but not to the monarchy. You have to respect the parents, you have to prostrate to your parents, but not to the monarchy. So there was a bit of changes. So this is an example of how Buddhism merged with the Chinese culture and society. Up till today, Chinese monks will continue to do prayers for the ancestors. I think Mahayana Chinese Buddhism, we are always known to be monks that do prayers for the deceased, monks that do prayers for the dead. So that is what we are being associated with. So because of the decree by Tang Taizong. So for example, Qing festival, which falls sometimes late February, March, and the Ulambana, or known as Filial Piety month in the lunar 7th month, Chinese temples will always have prayers for the departed ancestors. And this has been going on for many, many years. During Tang Dynasty, the emperor insisted that the order of the Sangha members will need to have proper records. So, in other words, records of Sangha members in every temple must be tabulated. And every 3 years, it must be updated. People who want to be Sangha members will need to take an examination. They will first be recommended by their teachers or mentors before taking the exams. And once they pass the exams and become Sangha members, they will have a certificate. This certificate is something to prove that they have passed the exam to become a Sangha member. It is compulsory for them to bring this certificate with them wherever they go to prove their identities. Those with the certificates will be exempted from paying taxes for life. For life, as long as they're monk, they'll be exempted from paying taxes for life. And for the Samaneras to become bhikkhus, they will to have another higher ordination certificate. Thus, once they have their higher ordination, they will have 2 certificates. The first certificate to prove that they have passed the exam to become a Sangha member. The second certificate to prove that they have achieved higher ordination to become bhikkhus or bhikkhunis. These 2 certificates are very important in their life. They will need to bring with them wherever they go to prove their identities. In other words, those monks or nuns who just shave their heads, but who have not passed the exams, they are liable to pay taxes. They are not recognized as proper monks or nuns. But those with certificates, are not liable to pay taxes anymore. So in the year 842, Sangha members who have committed crimes were ordered to disrobe. At that point in the Tang Dynasty, curses or sorcery or fortune telling, etc., were not allowed. There's no way where they could even go for feng shui or fortune telling. So all these were not allowed. And also, monks and nuns were not allowed to have personal finances or wealth. Their personal finances or wealth belong to the temples. The temples' finances or wealth belong to the state. So they were in no way having their own finances or wealth. The monks who stay in small temples or kutis that are not registered are forced to disrobe. In other words, monks and nuns are only allowed to stay in recognized, registered big monasteries or temples. If not, they are forced to disrobe. Thus, the number of recognized temples will decrease. Those that are not recognized are being destroyed. Only a smaller number of bigger temples remain. In all, 260,500 monks and nuns were forced to disrobe. 260,500 monks and nuns were forced to disrobe. And they had to start paying taxes. Buddhist temples became public places. Buddhist temples became factories. And the gold, silver, or bronze Buddha or Bodhisattva statues were melted to make into money at that time. So it was quite chaotic. So only several monks and nuns were recognized. And we could see Tang Dynasty, although they follow Buddhism, but yet they demolished a lot of all these Buddha statues and Buddhist temples. And it was at that point of time that we talk about Tang Dynasty, we talk about Xuan Zhuang Dashi. Now I want to say this, Xuan Zhuang, who is from the Tang Dynasty, is not the same person that we recognize in Xi Yu Ji or Journey to the West, where you have the Monkey King, you have the pig and all that, and the horse and all that. Xuan Zhuang is a very learned monk. At a very young age, he wanted to go over to India to get more scriptures to be translated into Mahayana texts. At that point of time, monks were not allowed to leave the city of Chang'an. They need a special passport in order to leave the city of Chang'an. But the most venerable Xuan Zhuang, he actually disguised himself to look like a merchant that wanted to go over to India to do trading. So he disguised himself, he made himself into one of the merchants, and he followed the group of people to India. It was not an easy task because later it was discovered that he was a monk and there were people who tried to catch him back. He took nearly 19 years to and fro to bring back Mahayana texts back to China to translate. So if you go to Xi'an now in China, you could still see a lot of remains of the most venerable Xuanzang, who did a lot of translation for Mahayana texts. Maybe one of that people know very well is the Heart Sutra that was translated by Xuanzang. Buddhism, after Qing dynasty and China after becoming republic, quality of Sangha members have demoralized. They were still trying to see whether there's one person to bring Buddhism to its peak again in China. During revolutionary times, Confucianism was the country's main religion. But the young revolutionists aspired to destroy old cultures, opposed to the respect of Confucians, and also opposed to Confucianism as the main religion. Not only that, they also opposed to Confucianism, Buddhism, Taoism, as well as all superstitious beliefs and old cultures. They tried to destroy all this. After the death of Sun Yat-sen and the rise of Chiang Kai-shek, who led Kuomintang, they started to believe in the three principles of people. At that time, laws were issued to abolish fortune telling and suppress people who have occupations related to superstitions, and declared that all folk beliefs to be abolished. Then Taoist temples, Buddhist and Taoist deities were destroyed. Then in Ming 19 years, which is 1930, excess wealth of the temple were used to set up education institutes, libraries, orphanages, or elderly care. That was basically until 1930. Then came, later on, Cultural Revolution. Cultural Revolution in China opposed to people who were learned. Any people who have culture, any people who is learned, were forced to do farming. At that point of time, all monks and nuns were forced to disrobe. They were forced to marry. I went to China My first time going to China was in 1984. At that point of time, I could still see many so-called old men and old ladies who were formerly monks and nuns. They were forced to disrobe. They were forced to get married. But they still work for Buddhism. They still continue to see what they could do for Buddhism. Today, we could see that Buddhism has grown in China. There are many temples. There are many monks. There are many Buddhist colleges. They are able to join us in Vesak celebration, join us in major celebrations, and so on and so forth. We could see that there is much interaction between the present China Association and the rest of the world. Mahachula Long Kong University worked very well with the China Association, Buddhist Association. And it's something which is very encouraging. Likewise, in Chinese Taipei, people are free to choose their religion. People can do whatever religion they want. There are many monks and nuns in Taiwan. We see that there are also a lot of Buddhist colleges. But now, because of people who do not give birth to so many children, the number of monks and nuns have dropped tremendously. We don't see that many monks and nuns in Chinese temples anymore. It's not like in Thailand, where it's more like everyone has to go through a short stint of being a monk. But that's not the case in China or Chinese Taipei, or even Malaysia or Singapore. So we have not many monks or nuns. We have this problem. And there are Buddhist colleges in Taiwan. They are comprised mainly of foreigners instead of Taiwanese. So today, I may not be giving a long lecture, but I'm more or less given the whole aspect of Chinese Buddhism with its origin from India to where China and Taiwan has. I hope it's not too boring. I hope I managed to let you understand the essence of Chinese Buddhism. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has. If not, we see where we go from here. Thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions? Please. Venerable Intriya, do you have any questions? Please.
No question, Ajahn. Okay, it is clear. Yes, Ajahn.
I see.
Yes.
Synodus. Sindovados, please, do you have any questions?
No, Ajahn.
No, no. Sushata,
No.
anyone from the faculty of Buddhism? Tang Chai, do you have any questions? Venerable Tang Chai is from the third year students of the Faculty of Humanities. The Faculty of Humanities, do you have any questions? Dr. Terate, would like to ask some questions? Visuttha, yeah, please.
No question, sir. I understand, sir.
Understand everything?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
It is a good question, sir, for Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism, sir. Yes, sir.
Theravada and Mahayana, everything is clear.
Yes, everything is clear, sir.
Wow, very good.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
48 participants, including Venerable Sir and also Venerable Dr. Ren. And okay, then before the end, I would like to invite Venerable Sanghas, Dr. Sanghas, Assistant Director for Foreign Affairs of Mahachalalapala Chutiyala University. Please give thanks speech to Venerable Sir, please.
Thank you, Sir Venerable Shimyang from Ching, colleague in Taiwan. So today, thank you Venerable for your sharing the knowledge of Mahayana Buddhism from China and Taiwan to the MCU student. This is the first time we co-organize teaching and learning together with affiliated institutes. So on behalf of the lecturer, Prathamavajara Bandit, to say a big thank to you to give your time and share the knowledge to our students. So this is not the first and not the last. So we organize another plan to set up co-learning and teaching together with MCU students and affiliate institute students. So finally, I wish that Venerable to happy and healthy long life, and also with our students to co-learning when we're going to set up co-learning and teaching again. So we would like to invite you to join us in this class. So today we are free air ticket to visit in Taiwan. So we invite a special and senior lecturer from Taiwan to give a special lecture to us. So this if we are going to travel to Taiwan or Singapore, we the cost of traveling costs much. So today free of charge to travel in Singapore or Taiwan. So without paying any money, but paying just attention to we are traveling to learn and teaching from Taiwan or Singapore. So finally, I have nothing to say. So thank you very much for everyone who attend the co-learning and co-teaching to this evening. So thank you very much, sir, on behalf of MCU. Thank you, sir.
So before leaving, please let us to pay homage to the Tibetan Chem, please.
Okay, we are going to pay homage to we're going to recite together. Okay. Sama Sambuddha Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivade Swakato Bhagavata Dhammam Namassami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham
Sangham
Namami.
Namami.
Thank you very much for everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you very much, sir. Venerable sir.
Thank you.
See you
Thank you very
again.
much.
Thank you very much.